I've been in your waters. I know for sure. I've never been so close before. It's one way or the other.
Hello and welcome to Kendal Mountain Festival 2020. Thanks so much for joining us for the Kiss the Ground Q&A. Back in January, we chose the theme of nurture for the festival's cohesive vision. And for us, this meant nurture in terms of mentorship. It meant nurture in terms of the way nature makes humanity feel. But it really, as a key focus, meant the way that we nurture nature. So we were so excited to be able to select Kiss the Ground as one of the films for the international competition. And we are over the moon to be having Rebecca and Josh Ticknell, the directors of the film, joining us almost in the building and almost in your homes tonight for the live Q&A. Hosting the session is Matt Swarbrick. Matt is a regenerative farmer and an ex-BBC documentary maker. You'll have seen his work on things like Cold Planet. He's hailing in from North Wales this evening. I should also mention that Matt is a marine biologist, so he really does have the science as well as the community focus to anchor this conversation. He'll be bringing in Catherine Chong, who is the co-director of Farms to Feeders, and Humphrey Lloyd, a head grower and member of Land Alliance. And these guys are really going to bring a UK and European angle to the conversation. We've also got a couple of questions from you, the audience, that we've had in advance. So this should be hopefully a fully rounded and accessible conversation about the hope that we can have for regenerating the soil of this planet. Thanks again so much for turning up. Please use the comments section and let us know what you think of the session. Enjoy. Now over to Matt.
There we go. Hi everyone. This is exciting, isn't it? Thanks for all being here. As Claire said, we're super lucky to have with us Rebecca and Josh Ticknell, the directors and I think originators way before that of the Kiss the Ground, the book, the film, the movement, the project. It's so much more than the film. And I think you're joining us on Europe's first Kiss the Ground's live question answer session. And at this brilliant mountain festival. So the other thing I'd like to say is thank you all the audience for being here tonight. I mean, I think the whole point of the movie really is that we're all on this journey together, aren't we? And like if you eat, you're in. And so I'd really like you to kind of pop your questions into the chat, whatever platform you're on, and we'll see if we can really get a big wide conversation going. So just to introduce myself, like I fell in love with systems ecology really oddly early in life. And I went off and I became an ecologist, and that was great. But then I wanted to make more of a difference, and I went off and worked in natural history filmmaking, and I made series such as Planet Earth and Life and Frozen Planet. And when I was doing that, I kind of firstly realized that we'd made a little bit of a mess of the world. And also I got a little bit bored of the day job being chased by polar bears at -30. And I wanted to do something a little bit, what I felt was more important. And that was to become a farmer. And so now we're on a mission at Hemban in North Wales with my family and a small pack of strays, all these helpers that come along. We're on a mission to prove that you can produce nutrient-dense food and that you can do it in a way that makes a profit. You can do it in a way that builds biodiversity and soil, and that builds community. And most importantly, that we can do so whilst enjoying it. And I think if we can do that, well, I don't know, it's a bit of a big thing. I kind of feel like we can save the world. And And I've been badly trying to tell that story for ages. And I've been thinking a lot recently about how the two most important jobs thousands of years ago would have been the farmer and storyteller. And I think we've lost our way a little bit, haven't we, as humans? And I think as we enter this next slightly bumpier phase, maybe, of human history, I believe that farming and storytelling have again become the most important jobs in the world. And therefore, brilliantly, there's this beautiful film, Kiss the Ground. So, Rebecca and Josh, are you there?
We are here. Yes. Can you see it?
There you go. I can see you. That's a bonus because I couldn't a second ago.
Hi,
yeah.
Matt.
Good to see you,
Hi
Matt.
there. That's more of a conversation. Brilliant.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hi, UK.
It's awesome to be here.
Hey, yeah. Nice. Yeah, so hopefully everybody's seen the film. And I'm pretty sure everyone's done that. But I wonder, maybe they haven't seen the rest of the Kiss the Ground project. Like I was saying in the thing, there's so much more to it, isn't there? It's a huge thing. I just wonder if you want to tell us a little bit more about Kiss the Ground, how it started, its goals, where you're taking it to. Is that a big question?
Sure. Yeah, no, we can talk about that. I mean, the film is part of it's a multidisciplinary approach to educating folks about what's possible through regeneration. And we're the filmmakers. We made the movie Kiss the Ground. We also did the book, the Kiss the Ground book, but we're affiliated with a nonprofit organization, also based in California. That's not us. That nonprofit organization is responsible for a lot of farmer education. So they do courses on gardening, they do courses on farming, and we collaborate in so much as the storytelling is our part of it.
Yeah. And we're also an extended part of the Kiss the Ground family, so they really are doing the nonprofit side. But on our side, we're also turning the feature Kiss the Ground into an educational version that will be shown in classrooms, a 45-minute version. And then we also have a 45-minute version that's just for farmers, more geared towards, I think, U.S. farmers. And both of those are free. Actually, we've had over 1,000 farmers in the U.S. request the farmer cut, but we're actually taking the education cut. And in U.S. schools, it'll be available to 30 million kids between grades kindergarten and 12. And a whole curriculum is being written to go along with the Kiss the Ground cut that will put the education of biosequestration and drawdown into classrooms in the U.S. for the first time. And this education and the curriculum, all of that will be also free for anyone, anywhere in the world who wants to use it.
Even people in the United Kingdom.
Even us as well. Isn't that nice, really? I've never been so grateful for a strong American UK bridge. It's great.
Well, we're like a UK bridge. We just did our ancestry. It turns out like he's 90% UK and I'm 80% UK. So we feel our roots come from.
Well, there we go. That's it. And all those mitochondria are probably really keyed into you as well. Then there you go.
Still good, that UK mitochondria. Exactly. Flowing through our veins.
Bring on the Guinness.
I was going to say, like, the film does such a good job of painting like our problems as well as painting all these solutions. And I don't know. I think there's so much doom and gloom narrative out there, isn't there? Really, and we're always kind of told though that people love a bad story, like people love negative stories, and that's one of the reasons why there's so little positive news in the media. Like I said, obviously the film really covered both, but how did you strike that balance? Like how did you work out that kind of balance of how much, well, that negative positive balance? And also, do you think out of the film, did you come out feeling much more positive?
Definitely. I think we started off feeling really afraid, and at one point we had all the bad news up front in the beginning of the film, and then the end was the solution, and people couldn't even get to the solution part because it was so depressing in the beginning. And it's the same information that's still in the film, but it's balanced with actionable things that can be done about them. And I think that's part of what people do like bad news, like you're saying, but people also like a happy ending. And so I think we've just had so much bad news for so long. I mean, for me, it started with an inconvenient truth. Like I screwed in as many light bulbs as I could and it wasn't making a difference. And I think, people are just tired of
She personally
feeling-
did 6,872 light bulbs, and it didn't, like, global warming still happened. I mean, we did,
Oh, man.
Didn't do a thing.
everything Albert said, we did. But, the planet got warmer.
But people want to be, people just shut down. They got to a point where they were just paralyzed. People don't want to talk about climate change anymore. Climate denial is a real thing for people, that cognitive dissonance of sort of detaching from this bad news and what the trajectory is. And I think,
and climate anxiety too.
exactly.
There's people going to therapy for dealing with the the anxiety of it all,
Or people
Yeah.
choosing not to have kids, or
Yeah.
just the whole.
which is like therapy.
You'll notice I'm locked away in a small.
Therapy is having kids. We have 2 kids, so we
Yeah.
But we, honestly, it was such a sigh of relief when we started. It started off with a lot of bad data. We were working with NASA scientists, NOAA scientists. In our first interviews, they were the scientists who were doing the carbon research and data were crying on camera. And we're like, oh gosh, this is not going to be a good movie. It's already going to be dull as dirt. And second of all, it's going to be super depressing. And so it actually took a while for us to reach the point in the conversation where the movement was beginning to rally around the pathway forward and what the solutions were and what the good, how can we reach drawdown? How can we get to global cooling? And those are the conversations that we wanted this film to be about. And it was, it took us 7 years to make this film because the movement has been coalescing during this time.
Yeah. Did the book come in parallel with the movie then, or did the book come was the book written and then you went off to film it? How does that work?
Yeah, well, it didn't work quite as well in practice as it did in theory. In theory, the book and the movie were supposed to come out simultaneously, but it took the movie another 3 years to come out. So we were a little early to the punch on the book, a little late to the punch on the film. But look, the book was distilled from the interviews that we were doing from the movie and the transcripts as they came in. We coalesced all that, and that's what turned into the book. So the book's deeper, it has a lot more information, a lot more character studies. You really get the depth. The film's 85 minutes, so you're in, you're out.
Yeah. Have you found there's much? Because obviously there's big differences in perception. This is not all the questions I was going to ask you. I'm just kind of talking to you. But, have you found there was a big difference in reception in different countries? Obviously, I don't know, the USA does quite a good job of, trying to convince a lot of people that we don't need to worry too much about these problems. And then, which is probably quite universal. But I wonder, obviously, you've taken the film to India and lots of parts of the world. Has that concept of the problem been really different in different countries?
It has. And I think what we find is, the United States in many ways is always our toughest market for these, we make green films. It's what we do. It's our 14th green film, environmental documentary. So, the issue with the US is very simple. It boils down to education. We had very sophisticated people who ran, multi-million-dollar businesses and all these types of, very diverse array of people. We do 10 test screenings a year. So we did, 70 test screenings over 7 years for this film. And, early on, people would say, you got to tell me what carbon is because I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have carbon, you better tell me what carbon dioxide is because, what's the difference between that? And then they'd be like, and what is the difference, by the way? And we were like, okay, this is lower than 6th grade education level science that we now have to pack into a film with PhD level information. I mean, the task of conveying everything from knowing nothing all the way to, oh, I get it. We can reverse climate change using, drawdown. That was a monumental task to accomplish in under 90 minutes. That's the hardest thing with the US. It's not that people are not interested, not that they're not motivated. It's not even that they don't, it's not even like Republican, Democrat. It's not even the divide. It really is the fundamental steps of education to get to the conversation. And what happens is the media does a lot of sort of washing of issues to just get people excited. And then people find themselves on either side of an issue, having no idea what they're talking about. They actually don't understand the issue. So when they sit down and they watch Kiss the Ground, we have plenty of people who are would be considered normally climate deniers, or people who are part of the I don't care about climate change. They watch the movie, they're like, this is the most inspirational thing ever.
Yeah.
Because the information is laid out in a digestible way, and we don't make anybody feel terrible for not understanding. Look, if you don't understand carbon, that is our job. We have to assume you don't. So that is our job, and that's our responsibility to get you all the way through the conversation. And because we take that on as our responsibility as filmmakers and as storytellers, we don't leave anybody out. And that's why the film, I think, is so universally enjoyable to watch. We don't assume that you're a PhD, and if you are a PhD, we don't assume that a little going over basics isn't bad.
Nobody minds, do they? If you've got nicely well laid out basics, I think even the people who write the book don't mind having a nice, clear. For me, I spend my life trying to explain these concepts, why I want to save the world, and why I bought a load of cows. And that so many people is like such an alien concept, They're like, well, I don't understand, because you understand climate change and you understand these issues, and yet you're farming cows. And so I think everybody likes hearing that story told really well, which is what you guys have done so well. One thing you do in the film is you give quite a lot of space to, and I know you've kind of discussed this previously in other stuff, but like you've given quite a lot of space to like the COP21 and to that kind of government kind of, it gives quite a positive way of looking at things, really, from that top-down thing. And I just wondered, and also it kind of really adds a massive self-responsibility to actually go, look, you can all go out and make these choices. Where do you see the change coming from? Do you think is it top down? Is it bottom up? Is it Extinction Rebellion and the next generation of activists? Is it who's going to change the world?
I mean, you know what? We were just talking about this yesterday, and we make these films because we're filmmakers, but we're also really truly activists first. Like we're activists not for like some radical thing, but like for the preservation of the well-being of life on Earth, that kind of thing. And so for us, we have realized, like my dad, for instance, I'm a 6th generation farmer in the US. And he is a farmer who has farmed soy and corn. And so now we're practicing regenerative agriculture on our small little 5-acre farm. But, he has thousands of acres. And so you can imagine the kind of, he loves Trump, he loves Roundup and glyphosate. So you can imagine the kinds of conversations that I'm having with him. And we went into making this film understanding.
You really actually can't imagine.
I can't. I used to have a great relationship with my dad. As time goes on, we both just stand our ground a bit too much.
I think, what's amazing that this film has allowed us to do is to access a new kind of language. A language that doesn't polarize people. It's not making farmers wrong. It's not making meat eaters wrong. It's not making vegans wrong. It's unifying people from a broad spectrum around a universal issue that affects us all. And that has been one of our greatest challenges. Like, I can't talk to my dad about climate change. I can talk to my dad about desertification, though, and he understands that. That's a language that's universal. Farmers, they understand small water cycles, or they're beginning to at least understand what it is that they're seeing in front of them. And when you speak to them about that, it's relatable and understandable. And I think farmers really do want to make a profit. But to answer your question, I think what I've come to learn through making these films is like, yes, these films make a difference, but here in the US, we're going through this interesting moment right now. I think the world is going through an interesting moment, and we're seeing an anti-racism movement happening here. And I was reading this interesting article yesterday about how the anti-racism movement is working, and they're not trying to get racists to be anti-racist. What they're trying to do is get everybody who's ambivalent about it in the middle, who doesn't care or doesn't want to get involved, to get involved. And so I think you can kind of look at this in a similar kind of light. Like, we're not trying to tell farmers how to do their job, and we're not trying to tell people what to eat if they have a strong opinion about that. But I think what this does is it closes the information gap around regenerative agriculture. Like, for us, we hadn't heard of regenerative agriculture, and we've been working on climate change for years, and we've been making movies about climate change. We didn't have that language. And so it's really about giving people the language to understand that there is a pathway out of desertification and climate change, and having people understand what that pathway is. We take the carbon, the teraton of legacy load of carbon, we take it from the oceans and the atmosphere, and we put it back into the ground. And by the way, we get nutrient dense food, and farmers can make money. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And when people hear that, wherever they may fall in the spectrum, people can find their place in that because it's an actionable thing for people that they can actually do.
Yeah, and you do that so well in the film, don't you? But do you, as a permaculture farmer, I was so pleased to see that you had that permaculture bit in there. I love that. And the co-founder of permaculture, Bill Mollison, said that though the problems get increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. And that's kind of what your film says in a bit. So did you go through all that thing? And like, I've kind of set out on this path going, look, actually, all we need to do is this, and this, and we can, in a really crude sense, save the world. So have you come out of it thinking that actually the solutions are so simple, so straightforward?
Yeah.
Or do you worry at the edges about,
No, look, at the end of the day, this is an elegant approach to what has become an intractable solution. And it largely has to do with the way we as human beings have looked at the problem. Climate change is political. If you really look at the problem, it's very simple. We put a lot of carbon in the wrong spot. We put it in the wrong space. So this is like if you've got a house and you have a living room, and instead of putting everything on the shelves, you just put it in the middle of the living room. It's in the wrong spot. And so the elegant solution, the solution that we've had as a species is to we had some conferences, we gathered around the middle of the living room, we took pictures of it, we put a lot of data and science around it, and no one just said, look, why don't we just put it back where it came from? Let's just start with that idea. And so that's the elegant solution. It's like, where did the carbon come from? Well, okay, yes, arguably it came from fossil fuels and oil and gas and, all of this coal. But where was it? It was in the ground. So if we want to put it back where it goes, you put it in the ground. That's the solution. And all of the rest of the sort of, it just gets very, all of a sudden it just turns into noise because you're like, well, why are we even having those conversations? I mean, yes, emissions reduction, that has to be part of our, future. But you asked who was going to lead the charge? Is policy going to lead the charge? Are millennials and zennials and Gen Z going to lead the charge with Extinction Rebellion? Are farmers in Wales? I love Wales.
Try.
The Center for Sustainable something or other there many years ago in Machynlleth, Wales. I love that word. It sounds like you're clearing your throat. Great place. I love that. So, are the people of Wales going to save us? You start to get into, and the answer is yes to all.
Yeah.
Yes to all.
Yeah.
This is not a movement where you're like, oh, you have to be a policy wonk to understand this, or, if you compost, it's not going to make a difference, or we can only save this with really expensive technology that's only available, to gazillionaires. No, I mean, this is a multifaceted open source movement. The power of regeneration, what we show in Kiss the Ground, the reason the movie is so powerful, is it lays out an open source platform to save the world. It really is. This is an open source program. Anyone can take it. Anyone can use it. It's relatively free. We're trying to make the film as free and available as humanly possible. And then all you have to go is like, what's my local environment? Do I live in a city? Okay, well, I can do planter boxes. I can do rooftop garden. We can do a neighborhood garden. We can do median strips in between we can do our parks. We can get the Roundup. There's a lot. I live in the countryside. Well, I can. So it depends on your local ecology, but the tools remain the same.
Yeah.
That's what the power of regeneration really is. And that's why, to answer your question, to answer your very short question, a very long-winded answer.
That's good. It's good.
This is a movement that is available for everyone to plug in.
Yeah.
And so yes, it will be everyone ultimately who fuels this thing.
No, that's great. We had a few questions. Yes, well, I don't know when, to be honest. The film festival ran a competition for some people to ask some questions. And so there's a really nice question from Holly Jessica, which is, how did you incorporate sustainability and being eco-friendly into the film production?
Great question. Well,
Oh, you thought you got us on that one.
Yes.
We burned as much fossil fuel as possible.
you know, we made the film in our barn. So we 8 years ago, part of the impetus for us to make this film actually was we bought a small farm not far from Los Angeles, and it was a monocrop, heavily sprayed farm. It took us like 2 years to get our first weed. It was so toxic, actually. And the barn where they processed all of those monocrop avocados is where we ended up building our movie studio and where Kiss the Ground was made. And for us here on the ranch for the last 7 years while making the film, we've also been regenerating our land. So our production studio is solar powered.
Sounds great. It sounds lovely. Yeah.
We're starting to get healthy soil here.
We only use child labor.
Yeah, perfect. Same here. We're trying.
Yeah, 3 and 6 years old, so they do all the editing.
And you know what? Actually, the distribution of Kiss the Ground has been such a different experience from all of our previous films. We didn't have to come to the UK to be able to be here live with you guys right now. And this kind of technology didn't exist before. Yeah. So when we released a film in the past, we would have to travel all over the world just to have a 30-minute conversation. And now, COVID has been so challenging for everyone. But one of the silver linings has been our ability to radically transform how our whole system operates. And I think, this is one of the benefits of that, like having a more eco-friendly distribution of the film and reaching people without burning all those fossil fuels. And what an opportunity for us as a species to see our capacity for great change. Like all of us together, when we get unified around something, we agree on something, overnight the world can change, and we've proven that this year. I didn't think that actually was even possible. I didn't have that faith in
humanity. It's so exciting, isn't it? Just to prove that ability, the speed that humans can do something if they have to, or they decide to, is epic. And it's so, yeah, I mean, like you say, it's such a positive sign of what we're capable of, really. And there's another question came in. This is from Eddie Jones, and it's, what will you take away from this film and apply to your personal life? You've kind of gone there a little bit already, but have you really kind of, what are you taking away from it?
Well, Rebecca's mother-in-law moved here, and I know that you're going to be thinking, like, where is he going with this answer? She moved on to the property. But before she did, she watched Kiss the Ground like 8,200 times. And so, she moves in, and all of a sudden there's chickens and pigs and chicken wire everywhere. There's roosters everywhere. I mean, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Our property has become a true zoo of regeneration.
We were doing an interview yesterday. We looked over. There was 4 chickens standing right outside the window looking at us.
Yeah. Whereas we used to just find, random snakes in our office. Now we find all sorts of random creatures. The kids who grew up making the film, 3 and 6. So our first one was, neither of them were born when we started making Kiss the Ground. They've both been, conceived and born during the time of making the movie. They're like so regenerative. All they want to do is play with insects and plant things and grow things, and so
our daughter is making anti-pesticide signs. She's like, stop spraying pesticides.
The film has become annoyingly present in our lives in a beautiful way. But
that's lovely. Yeah.
We're the people that, that if you find yourself stuck at a party with us, then you're going to find yourself trapped in the corner talking about mycorrhizal fungi for 2 hours.
Yeah, we had this funny little meme on Facebook that that I don't know where it was, years ago we found, and he said, imagine being at a party where nobody wants to talk about cows. And somehow our 3-year-old picked up on this and was listening to it. And then we heard her talking to our 4-year-old the next day going, yeah, Dad had this thing. And can you imagine being at a party and no one wants to talk about cows? And it was like, it's a really serious conversation between the kids. You had Alan Savory in the film, and to be honest, he's done so much work, which is actually even stronger than You Can Save the World with Cows. And, within that kind of holistic management, that kind of context building, and the messages you're trying to give out of the film, he would ask you what the kind of key moment, what is the weakest link in that chain? So at the moment, what's your strongest messages that you want to come out of the film, and what do you think is the weakest spot in that thing?
Well, one of the big messages, you mentioned Alan Savory, one of the big messages of the movie is we've done the agricultural experiment. The 22 civilizations, you can see their pyramids and their temples all over the world. These were many of them indigenous civilizations, the Han Dynasty in China, the Mayan Empire in Central America, the Egyptians. And, we tried agriculture the traditional way, where you put grains in the ground and you basically destroy the soil. And it didn't work. It didn't work for 22 civilizations.
Yeah.
So now we're trying it, 23, 24 times. We're doing it on a global scale. We've used 2/3 of the planet's land. Well, remember, the planet's mostly water. So if you use 2/3 of the land, you don't have much left.
Mhm.
So now we've got a third of the planet's land left. We've destroyed 2/3 of it. And this cuts to the heart of what are we going to do with our species? Because we're at an inflection point. We're at a moment of choice where we have two pathways. One pathway is we pretend that we've never done this experiment before. We pretend that it worked out. So all we have to do is just do it more. More chemicals, more Monsanto, more grain, more soil destroying. Look, all those other civilizations, it worked so well. Not.
Yeah.
Or we break with the cognitive dissonance of the past. We learn from the history. We get related to history. We get honest about it. We go, wow, we screwed this up a lot. And now we're going to try it on a global scale. And the reason why climate change and agriculture are so connected is because of that 2/3 of the planet that we've turned into desert. So the big flip and the big pivot, the 2020 word of the year, pivot, the big pivot that we can make as a civilization is to go, okay, 2/3 of the planet, the rainfall is too low to sustain trees. That doesn't mean we shouldn't pursue the trillion tree initiative. We should. In fact, we should plant 3 trillion trees to replace all the trees that we used getting to this point. But we're not going to be able to plant those 3 trillion trees in the desert. The only way to do that is through the regenerative practices that we outline in the movie, many of which Alan Savory was the sort of big promoter of, using hooved herding herbivores, cows, as a device to incentivize the growth of tall grasses to take those 2/3 of the planet and begin to regenerate it. And that can be done in an extremely short period of time, 10 years.
Yeah.
We could be in full regeneration on 2/3 of the landmass in the planet. It would balance the climate within 20, and within 30, we'd have global cooling. So this is the pathway forward. This is the sensible, sane pathway. This is the moment where humanity gets to choose. Do we want to have COP 25 and 26 and 27 and just have a bunch of people talking about policy that makes no difference? Or do we want to actually get real and be like, wow, let's use the tools that we now have. You can use your satellites and your tracking and your thermal imaging, get all the cool tech. But at the end of the day, it's going to be folks like you with your cows, walking across the middle of desertified land and regenerating that land. And we're seeing it happen in the US, in Australia, in Mexico, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres being regenerated right now as we speak using these technologies.
It's so exciting, isn't it? It's so nice to have that hope, just that actual positive. I find we get so many people come onto the farm with so they're sucked up all these negative stories, but with no positive story back. And I think actually, if we're going to change the future of civilization, we're all sat looking in this mirror, and it's okay, just carry on being the same as everyone else. And I think what you guys have done is next to this mirror, you've painted this picture of what a beautiful world could look like. And I think once people have got that picture of what a world could look like, they can then break that mirror and jump into that new world. I don't know where that came from.
Very poetic.
We're gonna run out of time for everyone else, so I'm gonna bring in, if we can, Catherine. Catherine, do you want to come in and join us?
Absolutely.
Amazing. Brilliant. Yeah.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us, Catherine. And I know that you guys at Farms to Feeders have been doing some really amazing work, really, in all sorts of different contexts, but linking small-scale regenerative producers and consumers, and looking at all the different things that come up in that conversation. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your project, and then
Sure.
and maybe go on?
Yeah, so yes, you're absolutely right. We are about connecting consumers with UK small-scale farming communities, particularly nature-friendly, regenerative farmers, and also with the social and ecological issues in agriculture and food. And in fact, one of our main mission is to democratize the agriculture and food systems. And so to do that, we need to have more information between consumers and farmers, between farmers and farmers, giving voices to the underrepresented, marginalized members of societies, and that includes ecosystem as well. And so empowering people to become food citizens, encouraging more diversity in agriculture, because that means not only we can look forward to a fairer system, but also a richer system that is reaching culture and expertise.
Good. That sounds really good. And how do you, because obviously we've heard a lot about how this looks in America and how maybe it looks in different parts of the world. The UK is a different context. I don't know, how do you think Kiss the Ground kind of fits? You know a lot about the kind of UK systems that we've got. How do you think it kind of fits into that UK context?
Well, I'll start by actually saying that in our modern living, particularly in developed countries, and that's really similar between US and UK, is that we're largely cognitively disconnected from agriculture. You mentioned earlier that we probably know more about climate change than we do about agriculture. And so I think what's the amazing thing about this documentary is that it gives us that opportunity to have that conversation with, between farmers, but also with food citizens, with consumers, not just about in the context of climate change, but actually all the other ecological and the social issues that is, webbed together with agriculture. But in terms of the ecology, UK is really interesting in that 70% of our land is agricultural area, and 25% of that is croppable area. So we're quite aesthetically, you could say that we're quite green. And what that also translates to is about 10 billion tons of carbon is stored in our soil. And that is roughly about 80 years of our annual greenhouse gas emission. And so I think that when I suppose a major message to us, like what you guys have discussed earlier, is let's keep that carbon in the soil, but there's also opportunities through agriculture to sequester more of the atmospheric carbon into our soil. And I think that's what's really exciting for us in the UK, as well as globally. Of course, none of these ecological issues are local issues.
Yeah. No, we're all
We're all
in it together.
Yes.
We're all in it together. And I was also going to bring Humphrey. Are you there? Are you around, Humphrey? Hey, look at that! Everyone's there. That's nice. Yeah, Humphrey. So you are a farmer. Hello. You all right? Good. I'm going to take that as a good.
Right.
Yeah. So you are a farmer. You're in a city context, and you're also a big part of Land Workers Alliance. I just wonder if you want to say, well, take this moment to say a word about Land Workers Alliance because they're awesome. But also, I think you got a good understanding of where regenerative agriculture is in the UK and in urban situations. Do you think, like, how much of this story do your customers already know, and do they care? And do those people who aren't your customers, I guess, know? So it's in Bristol, and like, how does Kiss the Ground help you get that message out there as well? if that's too complicated, just tell us how much of this story do you think your customers know about already?
Well, personally, my experience of this is that there's been a massive shift in public understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there's been a massive shift in public understanding of concepts like mycorrhizal fungi, carbon drawdown into soil, biodiversity rewilding. These kind of like these basic suite of concepts to do with the biodiversity and climate crisis and how they link into land. It's starting to be much better understood, not just amongst a subset of the population, but the population in general. And it's testament largely to movement building projects like films, the one we're discussing, that have enabled the public to like come on in their understanding of those things, which is amazing. I would say though that it's really important not to overestimate the extent to which not everybody out there understands ecology. Not everybody out there wants to eat organic food. Not everybody out there, you know, understands that earthworms are an important part of the world, you know, and actually, you know, building a movement that's going to win needs to really reach out to, you know, the vast majority of people who shop at the supermarkets, get takeaways, and really don't think about where their food comes from.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Just while we're talking to Humphrey, Humphrey made a film a few years ago called what was it called? Oh, In Our Hands, and it was really good. And if anybody's watching this, I recommend you also go and watch that because it's
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us, Humphrey? I don't know. Well, anyway, if Humphrey can't hear us, then yeah, watch In Our Hands because it's a really beautifully made film again, but it's in a UK. It is directly in a UK context. Yeah. I don't know. Do you guys, Catherine? Do you have any questions you want to ask Josh and Rebecca?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I was hoping you would ask that. So I think one of the things we've appreciated.
Try again now.
Humphrey, I'll let Catherine roll with this question, and then we'll come back to you again.
Yeah. So one of the things we've noticed through our conversations with regenerative farmers in the UK is that they are at different stages of their journey, and you know, some are first generation farmers like you, and some are sort of your third, fourth, fifth generation. And so we definitely see there's a need for that, you know, platform, that space for them to actually share this valuable information with each other as well with consumers. And so how do you Josh and Rebecca, do you see, you know, a next series of Kiss the Ground where it's, you know, talking about farmers working together rather than, you know, the sort of, there are competitors sort of economic models that we're familiar with?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think we're in so many ways, as Humphrey was stating, and as you have probably seen with your work as well, Catherine, we are still in some respects in the early days of regeneration. And we in the US, you know, organic represents the fastest growing food sector in the US. But now within organic is the regenerative sector. And it's fast growing, but if you look at the total calories consumed in our country, the vast majority, 95, 96% of calories are bags, boxes, and cartons, or some kind of, as Humphrey said, some kind of takeaway. And what a shame that we didn't get to come to the UK, because, you know, this would have been a great excuse to have some bangers and mash and other good, healthy UK food like that, you know. But it's I think we really are in a point where we're just beginning. The farming movement around regeneration is growing. The international connections are getting made cross-culturally. And look, if we continue making films about soil, we made 3 films about oil, so we reserve the right to make some more films about soil. I think we're going to see the story develop as the connections between farmers develop. And growers and ranchers, and oh my gosh, here's this guy in Nigeria, and he's talking to this woman in Amsterdam who's talking to, and we're going to start to see this cross fertilization of information, ideas, practices, and as we've sort of talked about now, where is the mindset of the everyday person? Do they understand that you can put carbon into the soil? Do they understand you can regenerate? That's going to grow as well. So that's our hope with the movement. We'll see how it plays out over the next 5 years.
Can I ask another question? It would be just a final one.
That's right.
So in terms of social justice, and I think it was really good that we had, we get to see what's happening in other parts of the world. But let's not forget that even in the UK, we still have structural barriers, social barriers for farmers to enter, to get into farming. Yes, of course, we got a lot of issues like you have the lowest pay, you have the highest working hours, but the big keyword is social justice. How could we make agriculture as being part of other social systems to be more equitable, to be more accessible, and what do you think about that?
I mean, that is the $1 million question, because so we're talking about the UK, we're talking about the United States. The average farmer in the United States is a white male of 70 years of age. That's the average farmer, which means there's plenty of white males that are 85 years of age, right? So there's no female in that average, and there's no other colors in that average. And that needs to change. That needs to change rapidly, especially when we look at a global level. We've got 1.5 billion, maybe more people in India, the same in China. We need a massive cultural shift in terms of whose hands are in the soil, who's responsible for the food. We know that when women farm, we know that the use of chemicals plummets, just statistically. Even before we add, cultural diversity, we just let the other gender, if we just let them use the tractor for a minute, we know that the nutrition goes up. So, for Rebecca and I, our goal is education, our goal is information, our goal is getting that into schools, our goal is translating that into different languages. And then as the story develops and we can get more people who are coming at this from more cultural perspectives, to highlight those people and to push them and to say, look at what this incredible person is doing from this other culture. You can do it too. So I think this is a matter of us all banding together and making sure that farming and growing becomes a multicultural, multi-lattice work thing, so that we're all protecting each other.
I mean, and here in the U.S., just here where we live, the Chumash people lived here. And so now we have reservations that are completely desertified. And we have that across the United States, where there's some of the people who are, facing the biggest economic pressures are also people who are living on desertified land. And so these tools of regeneration are so simple, and anyone can use them. And that is certainly one of our objectives here, is making those tools available to everybody that can help them. I mean, everyone can go and food. So that's the beautiful thing about soil, is that it loves everyone.
That's good. It's all we need, isn't it? Really, love, especially love and soil, and we're sorted. Humphrey, do you want to? We're going to come back to you and try going back to you one time. I don't know if you just want to. If you have something you really want to say, or something, just give us a bit of Humphrey.
I suppose maybe I'd come back to, Matt, a question that you asked to the film producers earlier about where you see the change coming from. And I really enjoyed the film. I really enjoyed its focus on technical changes, its focus on policy, and its focus on consumption. But I'd really just like to put in a plug there also for social movements, people coming together to make their world a better place. As a member of a trade union called the Land Workers Alliance that works both on policy and in movement building and in trying to change people's consumption habits, I've really been made so aware of how there's nothing that changes the world like coming together with like-minded people and really doing it for yourselves. And you know, the Landworkers Alliance is just our iteration in the UK of a bigger global peasants movement called the Via Campesina. And really, if there's anywhere in the world that I see change coming from, it's from, you know, vast interconnected international social movements like this that are doing a multiplicity of things. You know, they're working with farmers on the ground to help them improve their systems. They're helping to combat the narrative that underpins, essentially the myth that underpins the industrial food system, and changing policy both at a national and global level through institutions like the World Bank and World Trade Organization. So yeah, policy is important, consumption habits are important, but what's bloody important too is social movements.
Yeah, that's a great point, Humphrey. Thank you. I don't know where we go now. What would you say? We draw in towards the end. We're not quite there. Josh and Rebecca, do you have like those kind of take-home messages of the film, like those things that you really hope that people who watch the movie from it? What are those kind of? What are those absolute solid? Like, bloody hell! I hope they understood that.
You know, I honestly do trust that people who see this movie, that it infuses in their soul and resonates with people on such an intuitive level that I do trust that people will go out there and take action. I think one of the most important things that we can do right now is educate people about this, because most people around this issue are just so paralyzed. And in order for us to really make the kind of shift that we want to make, we really have to grow this movement so that we reach the tipping point of people having a conversation about how can we regenerate this land right here? How can we regenerate our community right here and take this land that we're on and restore it back to the way it was before we came in and messed it up, and then figure out our place in that, not the other way around. And so I think, you know, as you watch this film and as you go on with your life, like, I invite you to start talking about regeneration with people, start talking about drawdown.
Be that person at the party.
Yeah, find me at the party. Let's talk about mycorrhizal fungi, and then let's talk to other people about it. You know, because we really, like you said earlier, we really are all in this together. And I think that language is powerful.
Brilliant.
You wanted me to say something? I was just going to say, you know, share Kiss the Ground with everybody you know. You know, get your father-in-law to watch this. Get your mother-in-law to watch this. You know, let's spread the word. Get on Facebook. Get on Instagram, and make sure your community gets it. You know, look, Matt, you said in the beginning, what are the two important jobs that we're talking about? One is being a storyteller, and one is being a farmer. You may not be a farmer, but you can help create a new story for humanity just by sharing this. That's simple and something that counting on everybody to do over there in the UK.
And support Matt and support other regenerative farmers, people who are actually out there, and the incredible work that's being done already. Because, you know, regeneration, this movement is coalescing, and we all have a place in it. And to support the people that are leading the way, like you guys, and in your communities, you know, that's our job right now, is to help the people who are doing the work.
Yeah, I'd like to hear how people can get involved with what you're doing, Catherine. Website or sign up.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, the thing I think about saying that the most important job as a farmer is actually we're all related to the farming that we all eat. And like you say, actually, like the biggest vote you've got are those 3 votes a day, you know, and that's super powerful. I kind of wanted just to think about it. I don't know what I'm going to say. I think it's worth remembering that until really recently, like, the world has always eaten grass-fed beef, and the world has always eaten organic food. You know, like we messed up those civilizations when we were doing that. You know, so it's not just organic food and grass-fed beef that's going to save the world. But I think what we've got now is we've got the how, but we've also got that kind of why. I think it's time for humans to sit down and go, look, what is our purpose of being here on Earth? And the film kind of helped me find that. And you had someone in the film who lived with Lakota Indians, I think it was, or grew up with them. And I think if you ask them, what's the purpose of a human life? They would say that it's to care for all living beings. and that to them would include the soil. So, and I think if we can do that, then I think actually the more beautiful world that we all know in our hearts can exist is really just around the corner. And you have done such a beautiful job of making other people be able to see that vision. And we are running out of time. Does anyone want to say anything else? And then we'll hand back to Claire.
Well, I would say that's totally beautiful what you just said. You know, we have to expand the concept of citizenship, not just foot citizen, not just sort of nationally bounded concept of citizen, but actually we are connected with ecology. We're connected with all of segments of the societies. I think that expansion of citizenship is absolutely crucial.
Brilliant. I've got like a massive pile of questions I'd love to ask you guys, and we didn't even touch the sides. You'll have to come back and do some more. I don't know what we do with that. Do you guys want a last word?
This has been, you've made this so fun. I really appreciate it. It's been more like being on a late night show than,
Well,
this has been super exciting and fun. We'll definitely come back.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you. So I think let's pass back to Claire. And yeah, so thank you so much to all of you for being here. Thank you so much for making the movie, and thank you to all of you who are watching this, who are kind of, in service to making that more beautiful world. So back to the festival, and thank you, and good night.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Matt. Oh, we're back. Thank you so much to Matt, Rebecca, John. Audience for watching. There we are. Thanks so much to our audience for watching, and especially thanks to Matt for hosting at quite short notice. Thank you, Matt. He's a super resourceful human being. To Rebecca and Josh for dialing in, and for Catherine and Humphrey, especially for representing some quite different UK angles. If you'd enjoyed this, then obviously go and watch Kiss the Ground, which you can find on the platform. And also check out Nature Nurture 1 and Nature Nurture 2, which are specifically focused on environmental and nature stories. Once again, thanks so much. Please leave comments underneath the screen and check out the rest of the festival. Goodbye.